Hello everybody, you're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. This is the weekly radio show where we chat about the local arts news. We have a different guest on each week. We head over to the Rye Zone for a short story and or some poetry. We catch up with Twangling Jack Ford over in the Ilk Shed, and we play local, unsigned and or independent music. As always, you can find us on Facebook. If you search for The Art Show on Wickham Sound, you should be able to find us. And we are repeated on Wickham Sound on Monday nights. We're on the Wickham Sound Listen Again, iTunes, Spotify and wherever else you get your podcast. We're going to head over to the Rye Zone for the latest instalment of Black Solstice. This is a Christmas-themed short story by myself, Dane Cobain. You can pick it up in my collection, Scarlet Sins, which is available in paperback and ebook on Amazon and various other retailers. Black Solstice. I'll be eligible for parole come Valentine's Day. Tom waits for no man. Solstice card from a vampire in Minneapolis. John Reed awoke to a bloodbath of sorts, though his pale-faced angelic daughters had been drained of the stuff. They were both still in their bunks, their glassy eyes staring up at the ceiling, the puncture marks in their necks looking like recharge sockets for androids. Their skin had turned a papery white, matching their pristine bedsheets and giving them the look of department store mannequins wearing old-fashioned wedding dresses. Tupac, the cat, was dead too. His head had been torn off and thrown at the girls' stuffed animals like a bowling ball. The rest of the cat was poking out of their Jesus-themed litter bin, making a mockery of the Saviour's own suffering. Christ, who was hanging from a cross on its facade, had blood on his forehead and was looking out at the scene with an expression of beatific resignation. Mildred was unconscious still, though she was coming round. She had a bloody nose that had dripped down onto her chest, and John supposed she was lucky not to have landed differently, or she might have drowned in the stuff. He himself had bled heavily from the wound to the back of his skull, and he had a splitting headache that reminded him of his hangover days before he'd given up the bottle after the kids were born. "Mildred," John said. "Millie, are you okay?" He killed them," John murmured. "The girls," John said. "He killed them. Drained them of blood. They're gone, Millie." "They were?" "They're gone," John repeated, pulling himself unsteadily to his feet. He looked around the room again. There was blood on all four walls and the ceiling, presumably from the cat, and the girls' normally tidy bedroom looked like the aftermath of a bomb blast in Beirut. Even their dream catchers had been torn down, and on the far wall of the room their portrait of Christ stood watch beneath his crown of thorns. Someone had drawn a goatee, horns and glasses on him in the cat's blood. John picked up one of the stakes in his hammer. "No," Mildred said. "Not that, John. Anything but that. We have to." "I can't." "Then I'll do it." Mildred tried to pull herself to her feet, but all her strength had been taken away and she stumbled and fell again. John flashed a quick glance of concern at her, but then he returned to the task in hand. He dealt with Jessie first, because she was on the bottom bunk and she was easier for him to reach. When he placed the stake above her heart and smacked it with the hammer, the wood pierced her flesh and an unearthly hiss filled the air. She crumbled before his eyes, turning to dust and bone. Jude came next, with the same result. Once the job was done, John Reed glanced resignedly at his wife and then walked silently out of the room. He returned several minutes later with a shoebox in his hands. "What are you doing?" Mildred asked, as he removed the gun from the box and started loading bullets into the chamber. "What do you think I'm doing?" "It's too late," Mildred said. "They're gone. Your silver bullets are useless, just like the rest of these trinkets." "It's not for the vampires," John said sadly, as he loaded the cartridges into the revolver. "It's for us." "For us?" "It's our fault that the girls are dead," John said. "We didn't believe, we couldn't believe, but we were wrong, Millie. I was wrong. If we'd just believed, if we'd just been a little faster, we could have fought them off. The girls might still be alive, but now there's nothing to live for." Mildred seemed to think about it for a moment. Then she said, "Okay, but as long as you shoot me first." "You'd better watch out, you'd better not cry. Satan Claus is coming to town." The family was found in the morning when the three Jenkins kids from number 17 stopped by to sing some solstice carols. When they went to knock at the door, it was already hanging open, and so they'd let themselves inside for a break from the cold. They'd found John and Mildred in the smaller of the two upstairs bedrooms. They were lying slumped, armed in arm, with their backs against the wall, their glassy eyes staring vacantly towards their daughter's bunk bed. They weren't moving, but that was no surprise. Most of their heads were missing. Little Jessica Jenkins screamed and bolted downstairs towards the front door, with her two older brothers hot on her heels. They called their parents first and the emergency services second, and both of them arrived at the same time. The Reeds were carried out an hour or two later, their destination the city morgue and, eventually, its crematorium. Sergeant Gary Mogford of the Homicide Division had theorised that it was a murder-suicide, though if pressed to ask what had happened to the girls, he could only have given a guess. They were still awaiting results on the strange grey ashes that had been found in the girls' beds, as well as the sharpened lumps of wood that had been lying beside them. As for Satan Claus, he'd flown on back to hell, his hellhounds baying in the wind, his thirst slaked for another year as his wife slumbered in her seat beside him. "Oh, oh, oh," he bellowed, his deathly voice echoing out like a thunderclap as he flew over the Chilterns. "Merry Solstice, and until next year." That was the latest instalment of Black Solstice by myself, Dane Cobain, for this week's entry into the Rhylight Zone. You're listening to The Archer on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound, and this is Twangling Jack Ford with his latest version of Sweet Home High Wycombe.
And there I stood amazed for a while, as on a pillory looking through a lute, while she did call me rascal fiddler and twangling jack, with 20 other such vile terms as had she studied to misuse me so. Sweet home I will come, the wanderers are wandering, the M40 passes by. Sweet home I will come, like a stairway from heaven, like an escalator from the sky. Marlow Hill descends to the bridge on the River Wye. Walkers, joggers, bowlers, batters, throws and catchers on the ride. And if to London I should roam, it's just a train from Marylebone. Within an hour I'll be home. Sweet home I will come, the pepper garden, mausoleum, held by caves and chair museum, the art centre where I played the site where G-Plan once was made, a big chair for the furniture trade. Sweet home I will come, where the Hellfire Club play their degenerate games. Sweet home I will come, where Howard Jones threw off his metal chains. Sweet home I will come, we wait our men every year. Sweet home I will come, in the Chiltern Hills, the best town in Buckinghamshire, the best town in Buckinghamshire, the best town in Buckinghamshire, the best town in Buckinghamshire.
Be a thief if you feel like, be the falcon true outside, be the time in the infinite, in your one and only life, be the water turning to wine, be the hero they vilify. Go on Lord, come on. Be the writer of your own life, be the author, don't be shy. Of your own life, be the author, don't be shy. See your soul, I see your soul and a smile at the back of me. I see your soul, I see your soul and a smile at the back of me. soul. I see your soul smiling back at me. I see your soul. I see your soul smiling back at me. I see your soul. I see your soul smiling back at me. I see your soul. I see your soul smiling back at me. I see your soul. I see your soul smiling back at me. I see your soul. I see your soul smiling back at me. I see your soul. I see your soul smiling back at me. I see your soul.
That was Chaotic Harmony by Silverbacks, and before that we had the latest version of Sweet Home High Wycombe by Twangling and Jack Ford. You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wycombe Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and I'm joined now in conversation by this week's guest, who is non-fiction author Beth Beamish. So the first question, and you know this because you're no stranger to doing this particular interview, but it was, what is the last book that you read and what did you think of it?
Well, I've just been lucky enough to have a few days away on holiday, and my idea of a good holiday is taking a couple of books with me and sticking my feet up. So I was really pleased. I've packed Margaret Atwood's The Robber Bride. I love Margaret Atwood's work, and that book was just mind-blowing. I actually thought it was better than The Handmaid's Tale. Had fantastic themes of victimization, power and gender roles. And I was thinking about it for days afterwards. You kind of got to know these characters and you really felt for them and believed in the whole story. So yeah, it was just brilliant. I totally recommend that book.
Yeah, well, she's a master at it as well, and I mean, one of the things I like about Atwood, I haven't read that particular book, but she's tried her hand at so many different things as well. I mean, I think didn't she start out, or she used to do like comics and stuff in the 80s, I think, as well. So she's been around and done a little bit of everything. I mean, one of the ones that stuck out to me is
a very
Alias
good poet
Grace
as well. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I've not read any of her poetry, but I've heard good things. But again, like Alias Grace was fab, and yeah, you know, I love The Handmaid's Tale as well. But the weird thing with Alias Grace is it's kind of like, I guess, historical fiction, but it also is kind of non-fiction. It kind of rides the line very closely between the two of them. But you know, I've read that, and then I've read some of her stuff that's more like, you know, sci-fi, and then you got The Handmaid's Tale dystopian. So yeah, she's one of the few writers I think who can pull off pretty much any genre.
Well, she is just brilliant, and it's a total masterclass to read her book. I know she does teach masterclasses as well, but I just found actual craft of writing. She just has it so well done, and it was a real joy to read the book.
Awesome. And, you know, talking about the craft of writing, that's what we're going to chat about today. And the best place to start is if you let us know a little bit about Dyslexia, Wrestling with an Octopus, along with where the title comes from.
Well, yeah, this is a strange title, I know, but I really have found that trying to help my son with his dyslexia was like wrestling with an octopus. Just as soon as you think you know what dyslexia is, you read something else that blows your mind and you go, okay, so I really hadn't got my head around this at all. So it came from helping my son, Harry, who has severe dyslexia. He's also got ADD. And we needed to do a huge amount to help him. He would never have learned to read and write if we just left it to school. That's not to criticize the school, but he actually needed a lot of intervention, including things like speech therapy. He needed to have his ears checked, his eyes checked, he needed special glasses. And then I actually ended up with a structured literacy program, which I taught him myself half an hour before school every day. And that's how he actually learned to read and write. So yeah, there was a huge amount of input there, and I wanted to capture it all because Harry is actually adopted, and I thought his birth parents might go on to have more children and they'd like to know what we've done to help him. Actually, they have got more children, so it has been really helpful for them. But also I found it's amazing once you start talking about dyslexia, people go, oh yeah, oh, my child's dyslexic. Oh, I think I might have dyslexia. And suddenly they're asking questions, and it was just great to have this resource. In fact, I do go and do talks to Rotary groups and things like that. And when I discussed the fact that dyslexia is more than reading and writing issues. There's cues at the end of people in their 60s and 70s and 80s going, wow, you've just explained my life, and I had no idea I had dyslexia. So yeah, it's a complex issue and something that's very much underdiagnosed.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned there sort of some of the lesser known aspects of dyslexia. So I know you talk about health problems, social problems. What are some of those lesser known aspects?
Well, in my book, I've created a dyslexic mind map, and I've done it like an octopus, which is kind of why the title Dyslexia Wrestling with an Octopus, because I've got 8 arms of the dyslexia, and I've used the arms to be the 8 areas of dyslexic challenge. I could just whip through those quickly if you want. So the first arm was problems with telling the time. A lot of people who are dyslexic have real problems being able to tell the time. Some people find an analog works for them. Other people can only read digital. So that's an issue. And then things like direction, the whole left and right confusion is very common. Try and learn to drive when your instructor's telling you to go left and you go right, all those sort of things. Being able to use a map. It's really interesting. I've got a dyslexic friend whose husband was in hospital, and she stands in front of the board at the hospital telling you where the various wards are. She can't read that. She has no idea. Not just because she can't read the words, but the whole left and right confusion is really real for her. Second arms, things like letter reversals and coordination problems, as well as problems that teachers write on a board and then you're expected to copy it down. That's virtually impossible if you've got dyslexia. Looking up and then going down to the paper is very difficult. The third arms, the reading struggles, which we commonly associate with dyslexia, but actually in helping my son realize that I have dyslexia, I've always been able to read, but I'm a slow reader. And that was a real revelation to me. You know, I love reading, always have done, but I hadn't realized that other people can read much faster than I can. I actually use Audible a lot now and listen to audiobooks, which really helps with that. Fourth arms, listening problems, and that's things like struggling with background noise. This drives my husband crazy because he loves having music on. I actually can't think if there's music on. It just completely stops my ability to think. So in a classroom situation, if it's noisy, dyslexic kids will really struggle. Things like even having a heat pump going in the corner of the room would actually cause a problem for them. So that noise problems issue. Fifth, absolutely. Anything like that makes it really hard for them to work. The fifth one, again, a classic, spelling challenges. And I think the thing people don't realize is that spelling can be inconsistent. You might be able to spell Wednesday or February perfectly well one day, but the next day, terrible. I used to find it really hard when we used to have checks and you'd go to the supermarket and you'd have to write a check out. And I just couldn't remember how to spell that number. So it was really a challenge in that respect. So it's very inconsistent. So that's interesting with spelling. They don't always get it wrong. The sixth arm was the inability to find the correct word when writing. You actually, often people with dyslexia are very good verbally. Dyslexia is nothing to do with IQ, and people with dyslexia often have higher than average IQ, but their writing can look very simple because they just can't find those words when they're writing. This is why things like speech to text works really well for dyslexic children. Then they can actually get out what they're trying to say. Seventh arm is a memory issue, problems with working memory, being able to hold things in your mind. Very, very difficult. And rote learning is virtually impossible. By that, I mean things like the times tables. And in school, they're obsessed with kids learning the times tables. And that's just an impossibility for a kid with dyslexia. With my son, I found a system where we taught him his times tables using stories. Every number had an actual object attached to it, like 2 was a shoe, 3 was a tree, you know, every number. And then we made a story with the object interacting. And that got you the answer. That worked really well. Stories, you can just remember, whereas numbers were very abstract, really difficult to get those to stick. And the last Number 8 was the health and social problems. Now, this was something that I found fascinating. Other people might be less interested, but nobody had ever talked to me about the fact that dyslexia is a brain wiring difference, but it's also a genetic difference. So you actually have different genes, and the genes connected with dyslexia are on the same chromosomes that are to do with autoimmune diseases, things like Hashimoto's thyroiditis, skin conditions such as psoriasis, and I found it fascinating that people with dyslexia often appear quite naive. Just they have that social immaturity. It can change obviously over the years, but in school it's really hard for kids because if they're a year or two behind their peers, they get bullied.
Yeah.
So they're often targets for bullies, unfortunately. And lastly, in that health issue is they often have glue ear because their eustachian tubes in their ear are just smaller than most people's. So they get blocked more easily. And that causes a lot of problems because if you can't hear, you can't learn to speak correctly, and then that makes spelling very difficult. So that's a
Yeah.
huge issue as well.
Yeah. Well, and you can sort of see how a lot of those fit together. So again, using that example of going to a hospital, you might look at a map and struggle to process it, and then ask for directions, and then you might find it harder to hear, especially with some background noise of a hospital. And then they're
Yeah, I
saying,
know.
yeah, take the second left and the third right, and then you're mixing up your
Yes,
lefts and rights, and then you've got to have that in your working
yes,
memory. So I
yeah,
can see how
absolutely.
they can all combine together to be a bit of a nightmare as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's really interesting this time of year, running up to Christmas, so many things you have to remember. Well,
Mm,
honestly, being a dyslexic person in New Zealand is a nightmare because not only do we have Christmas in December, we have the end of the school year, and we also have to
yes.
plan our summer holiday, which starts in January. So, as
Yeah.
well as all your Christmas presents, you have to plan your summer holiday. You have to get presents for the teacher for the end of term. You have to have
Mm,
end of year breakups. And to be
yeah.
honest, I think as a dyslexic person, it's virtually impossible. I just want to climb under my bedclothes and stay here till February. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and even then you've got your back to school to think about, and all of your textbooks to get,
Yes,
and your new uniforms and all
absolutely.
of this stuff.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. It is. It's much more difficult being down under, I can tell you. Lots of lovely
Yeah,
things about living in New Zealand, but I do find this it's like a massive pinch point.
yeah,
As you say, with back to school hitting you as soon as you've got, and also financially, you've just had to
mm,
buy all these Christmas presents, then you've got to pay for your
yeah,
summer holiday, then you've got to pay for all your back to school stuff. It's
yeah, yeah.
absolutely crazy.
And so, going back to the sort of some of the social issues around dyslexia, one of the things I know you were keen to talk about is some of the best jobs for people with dyslexia. So, could you kind of elaborate on what those are and why people with dyslexia are so suited to them?
Yeah, will do. Because as I say, it is a brain wiring difference. Um, and people who've studied dyslexia, there's a book called The Dyslexic Advantage by Brock and Fernette Ide. And they've outlined that because of this difference in brain structure, there are certain professions that are more suited to people with dyslexia. And the areas are things like engineering, the
Hmm.
arts, and entrepreneurship. And I would add things like chefing, acting, sports, and horticulture to that
Yeah,
suggestion. And I think the thing is, many neurodiverse people are just desperate to get a job and they'll take anything. And it
yeah,
doesn't necessarily play to their strengths. And that's a horrible, horrible way to live. So the sweet spot is knowing what your strengths are and trying to find something that will pay the bills in that area. I was really lucky because I didn't find out I had dyslexia till I was in my 40s.
mm,
But I loved art and English at school. I knew my spelling wasn't up to scratch and there was no spell checker in those days. So I went down the art route and I did graphic design. And that was great. Loved it. It was a fantastic career for me. But I did need someone to double check my work because typos often crept in there. I had a classic example of doing a brochure for a German company where I just completely duplicated a whole paragraph of text and didn't spot it.
yeah,
So yeah, you've just got to make sure you've got the support in place, I guess. And I hope we're getting to the point where people can say, actually, dyslexia is my strength. I'm great at this, but I do need someone to check my work.
yeah. Yeah, but and also that's needed in general. I mean, that was making me think of there's this great typo that me and some of my writing friends have spotted where a book was translated loosely speaking from US English into British English, and they did a
Yeah.
find and replace to change the word pants to trousers.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and that ended up being there was at some point there was a line in this book that got printed and was distributed like that where it had the word trousers because they'd done
Oh,
find and replace on the
yes.
word pants. So you
Yeah.
still need
Yes.
you always still need that human touch, you know, you always need a sort of a second pair of
Yeah. Yeah.
eyes. But it was
Yeah.
interesting to hear you say entrepreneurship as well, because I'm pretty sure Richard Branson is dyslexic as well. I'm sure
Absolutely.
he's talked about that. And I mean I've read some of his books, you know, and his books are really good. So it also shows, and I suppose you're a case in point of this as well, you know, as a writer, that, you know, just because it may be, you know, I don't know, you may
More
think of
difficult.
yourself as not being able to, yeah, but not impossible, yeah,
Yeah. No,
yeah,
it's not impossible.
and
It's more difficult. And some of the, Agatha Christie, Jules
mhm,
Verne,
yeah,
Scott F. Fitzgerald, they all had
yeah,
dyslexia. So it's not to rule these things out at all. And it's
mm,
a question of finding a way around it and what works. And for me, having things like Grammarly and Pro Writing Aid
yeah.
and, assistance to pick up things that I just wouldn't spot has been
Yeah.
fantastic.
You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain. I'm here in conversation with Beth Beamish. And this is Tom Bradley Jr. with Loving You.
Broken memories, tiny tragedies, lead me back now to loving you. And every time I blink, hesitate to think why I'm still in love with you. 'Cause every time I look away, there's a price I have to pay. 'Cause you are the one I'm thinking about tomorrow, and I need a second chance for you to come and help me fall away beneath your shadow and let me fall in love with you now, honey. Looking at the sky, screaming, asking why everything happened the way it did. I'm still in love with you and swear my heart's still true. All I wanna do for you. 'Cause every time I look away, there's a price I have to pay. 'Cause you are the one I'm thinking about tomorrow, and I need a second chance for you to come and help me fall away beneath my shadow and help me fall in love with you, oh honey. So baby, come on now and kiss me. Every day I have since I'm in you. Been a bumpy road, but I know that you miss me. 'Cause every time I look away, there's a feeling I could stay. It's you.
That was Tom Bradley Jr. with Loving You. You're listening to The Archer on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain. And I'm rejoined in conversation now by this week's guest, who is author Beth Beamish.
And so you've been teaching creative writing. Who do you teach?
Yeah, I work for the School for Young Writers. I've been doing that for the past 6 years. And we have children aged 7 to 19 who enjoy creative writing. So, most kids go and do sport on a Saturday morning. They come and write poetry and they absolutely love it. So we have Saturday morning classes. We also do holiday workshops. And I go into schools and teach workshops in schools as well. And honestly, I'm blown away constantly by the creativity of these kids. They do really well in little competitions that we have in New Zealand. And we've got some very, very talented students. It's a real joy to teach them.
Awesome. Cool. And, a couple of the things I wanted to cover with you. I know you write under a pen name. What's behind the decision for that pen name, and where does the pen name come from?
Yeah, I just felt I'd actually just watched that movie about Christopher Robin about the same time I was doing my book, and his life was ruined because his dad put his name in the book, Christopher Robin. I remember he apparently went to boarding school, and kids used to love to push him down the stairs and say, "Oh, Christopher Robin's coming upstairs," and they'd push him down again. So I really didn't want to damage my son by putting his name in a book. And also dyslexia actually gives you a lot of shame and embarrassment anyway, and I didn't want to add to that. So I changed my son's name, and then I thought, well, if I've changed his name, I'll have to change my name. So my middle name's Elizabeth, so I became Beth, and we actually got married at a place called Beamish Open Air Museum in the northeast of England. So I became Beth Beamish, and it was a big issue when the book came out because he was 15 at the time. It's not such a problem now, but I did want to just give him that protection, really.
Yeah. And you mentioned, again, you're originally from the northeast of England, and obviously you moved to New Zealand. How did that come about?
Well, funnily enough, we'd been on honeymoon to New Zealand in 1995, and I loved it. We actually had the most glorious honeymoon. It was like wall-to-wall sunshine. Now I live here, I realize how rare that was, but it was a fantastic trip. And I thought, wow, beautiful place, fantastic. But, it's far too far away. I can't imagine living there. And then a couple of years later, my husband, who's a university lecturer, was offered a visiting lectureship. So we came out for 9 months and really did love it. And we could just see that our quality of life was going to be so much better. I mean, we love the outdoors. I think this is the thing. You don't come to New Zealand for the shopping, and you don't come for big cities. If you want that, you go, Sydney or London. But if you like the outdoors, New Zealand is fantastic, and we just really love it here.
Awesome. And so I noticed when people sign up to your newsletter, they get a little bit of a freebie. Do you want to shout out what that is and why people should sign up to your newsletter?
Yeah, so I've got a website, dyslexiaoctopus.com, and as you say, as a freebie for signing up to the newsletter, I have a infographic on tips from a learning support teacher, things that'll help you get the right accommodations for your child in class. So what I do, I am a mum, and I've shared my experience, but I've also worked with learning support teachers and dyslexia tutors to put my resources together. So I got the best tips from the learning resources teacher. She's got 20 years of experience, and she's got some really good tips there. So I've put them as a freebie, but also I do blog about dyslexia, and often, just like you, I interview dyslexic specialists and put that on the website as well. So I try and get a new blog post up every month. I'm in awe of you doing something like this weekly, because it takes me all my energy to do something once a month.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just trying to yeah. I'm talking about the lesser known aspects of dyslexia, things like those health conditions, also the links with other, nobody's really just dyslexic. The way that the fact it is a brain wiring difference means there's usually something else going on. For me, it's dyscalculia as well. I do struggle with maths. For some people, it's ADHD. Some people, it's autism. Some people, it's other conditions like that. So, yeah, we do talk about the overlapping challenges that come with dyslexia.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Okay. one question I didn't ask you when we attempted this before is in terms of the feedback that you've received and the reviews you've had and things like that, what are some of the best or most memorable bits of feedback that you've had?
Oh, well, I've actually been blown away by the feedback that I've had. As I say, I put this book out just, hoping it might help one or two people, but I have been really delighted by the sort of feedback that I've had. On Amazon, I've got over 120 reviews, or 4 and 5
Nice.
star reviews, which is really great. And when you read some of these reviews that people put about how they found the book, it's written as a conversation at a school gate, so that's kind of different from a lot of the more technical books, and I wanted it to be just like two parents talking to each other. So one person said, really enjoyed the humorous way it's written. I put a lot of illustrations in the book as well, which was really difficult to actually make the book with the illustrations in, but I'm glad I did, because especially that mind map with the octopus,
Yeah.
people have said that that's been really helpful for them to share with teachers, and they're just so pleased that they've been able to talk to their kids even about how it's like an octopus. I've had dyslexia assessors contact me and say, where can I get an octopus from? So I've been sharing my link for the octopus that I use. I've got a nice big orange octopus that I use. So yeah, it's been lovely actually getting that feedback and just knowing that that octopus mind map has helped a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, and didn't you mention, I mean, I think you said it's been selling particularly well in the UK, right? And isn't that because people have been
Yeah,
using it kind of in learning
yeah,
environments and things?
that's right. And as I say, I've had dyslexia assessors from the UK, especially from Wales. Interestingly enough, I did a online workshop for dyslexia assessors in Wales. They've loved it, absolutely loved it, and find this octopus idea really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just getting that review, like, I've been a dyslexia assessor for years, but this has really opened my eyes to some of the challenges that I didn't even know that my students had.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been great to get that sort of feedback.
Awesome. And just to end things on, so what have you got planned next, and where can people follow you to find out more?
Well, I am working with, as I say, dyslexic assessors and people who work in this industry to actually develop more resources. So keep an eye on my website. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, with Dyslexia Octopus as my name. So yeah, do keep an eye on that. I also do write fiction, and I'm writing a historical novel series at the moment, so that keeps me busy. Yeah, there's plenty in the pipeline.
Big thank you to Beth Beamish for joining me. You're listening to The Archer on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and this is Straight 8 with their version of Mustang Sally.
Mustang Sally, think you better slow your Mustang down. That's right now, baby. Mustang Sally now, baby.
Sally. Ride, Sally, ride. All you wanna do is ride around, Sally. Ride, Sally, ride. One of these early mornings, oh, I'm gonna be wiping your weeping eyes.
On an English summer's day, you meet a man who leads you astray. You meet a man who complain our life like we're betrayed of yourself. Mr. Dorian Gray, Mr. Dorian Gray, Mr. Dorian Gray. Brother of your wife to be, want you dead for the hurt you spread. But when he finds you young and free, you fool him into thinking you cannot be. He cleans all others in search of grief. For one self, your only goal is to miss more beauty and well. Gray, Mr. Dorian Gray, Mr. Dorian Gray. Behind your hidden mask, I see the horrors of your past inside your extravagant prison. You live a life of habits of you. Cheated your life, you murdered your best friend, and yet your portrait takes all the blame. Behind your hidden mask, I see the horrors of your past inside your extravagant prison. You live a life of habits of you. Cheated your life, you murdered your best friend, and yet your portrait takes all the blame. Only for confession will absolve. So the knife you take a hold, thrust deep into the portrait's heart. Lying lifeless, this world you do depart. So to your portrait, what does it now show? Shows the once kind, gentle Mr. Gray, whom we used to love and know, whom we used to love and know, whom we used to love and know. It shows the once kind, gentle Mr. Gray, who we used to love and know, who we used to love and know, who we used to love and know. Behind your hidden mask, I see the horrors of your past inside your extravagant prison. You live a life of habits of you. Cheated your life, you murdered your best friend, and yet your portrait takes all the blame. Behind your hidden mask, I see the horrors of your past inside your extravagant prison. You live a life of habits of you. Cheated your life, you murdered your best friend. You know his tale and your name of all that remains.
That was Mr. Grey by Humans Can't Reboot, and before that we had Straight 8 with Mustang Sally. You're listening to The Archer on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host Dane Cobain, and it's time for us to head over to the Oak Shed now to catch up with Twangling Jack Ford for this week's album review.
The Hollies, All the Hits and More. This is a double CD I got from the Oxfam shop in Aylesbury for £1.99. This album is in chronological order, so it starts with some of the best songs ever recorded. Mostly covers, but some originals. All featuring the distinctive vocal harmonies that came from Graham Nash singing above Alan Clark's lead and Tony Hicks singing below it. On songs like I'm Alive, they use this to reach amazing crescendos, unmatched by any of their contemporaries. Tony Hicks also added some extremely nifty lead guitar parts. Songs like Here I Go Again, I Can't Let Go, Bus Stop, Look Through Any Window, On a Carousel, Hey Carrie Ann and Jennifer Eccles, a couple of which were written by Graham Gouldman, later of 10cc, and every one of them a massive earworm and very much the sound of the 60s. Like Radio Caroline on a trebly transistor radio, Ready Steady Go, Jukebox Jury and Pick of the Pops. Things got a bit more serious with Graham Nash's song King Midas in reverse, a bit more beads and caftans. But the other Hollies were not happy with the new direction, so Graham Nash left to do his excellent high harmonies with Crosby and Stills. He made one last pop song with the Hollies, Listen to Me, which is one of my favourites. A song that does not sound much at first but kind of sneaks up on you. Whereas Graham Nash became a leader of the Woodstock Nation on his Marrakesh Express or in his house teaching the children well, the Hollies reverted to the chicken in a basket circuit frilly shirts and became supreme interpreters of great songs like Air That I Breathe, He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother, the social commentary of Gasoline Alley Bread, and Springsteen's Sandy. There is also Long Tall Woman in a Black Dress, a slinky slice of Elvis-like rock and roll written by Alan Clark. I always liked that Nash and the Hollies did not fall out, and he did guest with them in later years. The Hollies, all the hits and more.
Big thank you to Twangling Jack Ford for this week's album review. Thank you to everyone whose music I've shared. As always, you can find us on Facebook. If you search for The Art Show on Wickham Sound, you should be able to find us. We are repeated on Wickham Sound on Monday nights. We're on the Wickham Sound Listen Again, iTunes, Spotify and wherever else you get your podcasts. Please do leave us a short rating on your podcast platform of choice. It all helps. You can reach out to me here at the studio on dane.cobain at wickhamsound.org.uk. That's dane.cobain at wickhamsound.org.uk. So I'm going to leave you with one last tune. This is previous guest MLN Ensemble with Fading Memories. I'll catch you next week.